Hello world, it's Birdo Prey 5, Qapla. Welcome to the Star Trek Picard, Season 1, Episode 10, Season Finale Review of Et in Arcadia Ego, Part 2, which of course is just Part 10 of the story, and no more a Part 2 of the previous episode than any other. Before we get to spoilers, I will tell you very few, if any, rumors about this final episode seem to pan out. In fact, most rumors on this series turned out not to be true, or at least didn't make it into the series, since it's very clear this entire series was heavily edited, and this final episode is no exception. I will say the final episode is neither great nor awful, and to me at least, and Mamo Prey, the ending was decent. There was no final episode cliffhanger, so if Season 2 never happens for whatever reason, we won't be left hanging. As soon as the episode ended, my initial score was 5 out of 10, as it seemed like a middle-of-the-road episode. But as always, I reserve my right to change my score when we finish what will be a scene-by-scene breakdown of this final episode. So with that, let the spoilers begin. Right after the CBS All Access logo, you see Michael Burnham. Oh my God, my heart sank. I was ready to scream this couldn't be happening. But in fact it turns out to just be an advertisement for Discovery Season 3, which we're told is coming soon, but given no specific date. Now would be the time to give me a date if you want me to keep my subscription active. I also wonder if this little ad they sneak in will be on Amazon for those who watch outside North America, which would be advertising a direct competitor's show, since STD is on Netflix. Let me know if you do watch this on Amazon and if you see it, please. After an extensive previously on, the show finally begins on an exterior shot of the Borg cube, which we can now see happen to land on the edge of an ocean, an even more convenient landing place than we saw last week. We see Narek sneaking into the Borg cube. Seven and Elnor have apparently left the one-way in and out totally unguarded, despite being on a weird alien planet. As Narek sneaks around the cube, we see a number of droids flying to fix the ship, which gives Seven and Elnor a chance to just sit back and talk. Elnor asks if the XBs would be better off dead because, quote, everyone hates them, they have no home, and they don't belong anywhere. Instead of Seven asking Elnor if all the Romulan refugees would be better off dead for the same reason, Seven says she's an XB who doesn't belong anywhere and has no home, and asks if she should kill herself. Of course she forgets that she had a home. The crew of Voyager surely didn't forget about her once they got to Earth. And what about Chakotay? Anyway, Narek manages to slip past everyone and make his way toward the interior of the cube, where his sister surprises him by coming up behind him with a knife to the throat. It's okay though, they only hug. No kinky sex scene follows. We last left Narissa in Episode 8, where it was heavily implied she beamed to a Romulan warbird after getting fondled by a pack of XBs. As I pointed out in that review, however, it was possible she beamed somewhere else, since they didn't show her rematerialize. My suspicion was correct, and for some reason, she instead beamed elsewhere within the cube, where internal sensors couldn't detect her, I guess, and had been hiding there the entire time. How did she know the cube was even coming to this planet? Why choose to stay on the cube rather than join the fleet? Did she really want to risk that Seven happened to care about Picard and could find a Borg corridor that could get them there in time? Besides the 1,000,000-to-1 shot the Borg cube would make it to the synth homeworld, she also survived re-entry without any apparent injury. Narissa asks her brother 3 questions. Has he found them? Has he f***ed any of them? And has he killed any of them? He answers yes, no, and 1. To which Narissa admits is progress. Of course, he didn't actually kill anyone last episode. Sutra did, and blamed it on Narek, albeit with his permission. The scene changes to Picard, who we last saw being escorted away by synths because it was too dangerous to allow the 95-year-old to walk around, since he gives such passionate speeches. That's real. That was the reason. The synths, of course, lock him in Bruce Maddox's old office, rather than the actual brig they kept Narek in, since I guess they want to be nice to him before the super AI kills him. Soji comes in to check if Picard is okay. He says he will be once he's set free. Soji tells him to see it their way. That he, Picard, and by extension Organics, choose if they, the synths, live or die. Rather than pointing out the obvious ridiculousness that the synths now have the organics in the exact same situation, now they get to choose if organics live or die, he tells Soji her perceived lack of choice is merely a failure of imagination. While this is quite poetic, the fact that a Romulan assault fleet is en route to literally destroy them all causes this to ring a little hollow. I would be pushing the math side of it, the needs of the many versus the needs of the few. How does she justify killing trillions and trillions, including little puppy dogs, bunny rabbits, and even alpacas, to save 100 or so synths on this planet? He asks Soji to please stop building the beacon that will destroy all organic life, but despite using the magic words, Soji seems unfazed, and work on the beacon continues. The opening credits tell us Jonathan Frakes, aka Captain Riker, will be in this episode, so it ruins the surprise when we see it later. Brent Spiner we knew would be in it because he's playing Dr. Soong, but we do get a surprise when we see him as Data, so we'll call the opening credits a wash. After the credits, we're back with Narek and his sister, and Narek is loading a dozen grenades into his bag. Narek tells Narissa he needs to do this himself because he was the washed-out Zhat Vash, an embarrassment to the family. We've only seen women Zhat Vash, but in an interview, Alex Kurtzman, I believe, told us that men can join, it's just in practice, not many make it, so this isn't bad writing, it's just, well, it's bad writing, but it's someone else's bad writing, I guess. Narissa allows Narek to go, but as he leaves the cube, we see Elnor has started following him. Why didn't Elnor just kill him in the cube? What was the point of following him? I guess that's just what the script called for. Back on the La Sirena, Rios is hesitant to use the magic tool the synth saga gave Raffi to fix the ship. It's literally a magic tool that does anything you can imagine. A very useful tool to have. I wonder if we'll ever see it again after this episode. Raffi talks Rios into using it, and sure enough the thing glows and magically repairs the ship, to which Rios says, "Ay, caramba!" Yes, just like Bart Simpson used to say. And just like at the end of every Simpsons episode, things are magically back to the way they were, at least on the ship. And the Simpsons of yesteryears, of course. At the lab, Dr. Soong is showing Jurati where she will be working after he tells her she's making a remarkable sacrifice, and he guesses it's just what mothers do. He leaves her to her work, and we get the first hint that she might not have ever intended to help the synths. And we're quite sure of it when Jurati says out loud, but with no one around, "I'm not their mother, asshole," referring to Soong. However, this ignores the fact that Sutra was supposed to be able to tell if Jurati was lying when she said she would help them. Back on the La Sirena again, we hear a repeating noise that Rios says he recognizes. Rios and Raffi go to the cockpit to see Narek throwing rocks at the windshield to get attention. Despite never meeting him or even seeing an image of him as far as we are aware, they recognize him as the dirtbag who did the things he did to Soji. They want to talk to him, so Rios turns on the ship's PA system. Yes, the ship's public external address system. Why does a spaceship have a PA system? And it turns out it has an external microphone too, because they seem to be able to talk back and forth just fine. Rios and Raffi hate the guy, but he convinces them to let him in and talk. He says he's there to save the universe, and they need to work together. They take Narek to a table in the back to talk. Raffi keeps trying to contact Picard by communicator, but he isn't responding. Narek explains the synths have the city on lockdown, and are jamming communications, when Elnor shows up and puts his sword to Narek's neck. Raffi and Rios jump up to calm down Elnor, and Narek delivers one of the best lines of the episode.
"I do. I very much choose to live."
We jump back to the lab. This time Soong is working by Saga's body. Jurati comes in and tells him she ran across some encrypted files and needs his help to decrypt them. She tells him Bruce always said Soong was better at decrypting, which would mean Jurati knew Soong existed and may well have known where Bruce was this entire time. It's hard to be sure what she knew and when. Anyway, she gets Soong out of the lab long enough to remove Saga's eye, since all the doors use retina scanning for security. Thankfully, this scene wasn't like Ichib losing his eye. We only heard it. We didn't see it. Yet. Outside the La Sirena, it's now nighttime and there's an electrical storm nearby, but they decided to start a campfire outside rather than stay in the perfectly good, fully powered spaceship. They also seemingly paused their previous discussion until they all went outside and started a fire, because Elnor is still angry at Narek and saying he shouldn't be trusted because Narek's sister killed Hugh. How does Elnor know Narissa is Narek's sister? Family resemblance? If Elnor saw Narek and Narissa talking while back on the cube, surely he would have killed Narissa first. Rios and Raffi explain they have a common enemy and want to hear what Narek has to say. Narek starts talking about Ganmadan, which Elnor dismisses as just a story. Even Raffi, who was at one time Starfleet's foremost expert on Romulus and Romulan culture, had no idea what it was. Narek explains Ganmadan is the end of everything. Rios compares it to ancient myths like Judgment Day. Narek says that some people say the story dates back to when before his ancestors got to Vulcan, which has to be a mistake in the writing. Everything we know says Vulcans evolved on Vulcan, and it was the Romulans who left Vulcan and went to Romulus. The writers had to mean the story dated to before his ancestors got to Romulus. I can't fathom how a mistake this big makes it past the writers, the editors, the director, and even the actors. Did no one catch this, or did they just not care? Either way, very sad. Narek explains the story in gruesome detail, to which Raffi asks if he, Narek, really believes this is a prophecy. Narek explains he doesn't think it's a prophecy, he thinks it's history, and that history repeats itself. We get a quick cutscene to the Romulan fleet still at warp, which O says out loud and with no one seemingly around. At last our great work is nearly at an end. I mean, there is no one in the scene. Who is she talking to? After this, we get two quick scenes intertwined together. They must figure out how to get back into the Synth City and destroy the transmitter. They use the trick of pretending to turn Narek into them because the Synths still think he killed Saga. This, of course, works, but the guards make them give up their weapons and their bags, but allow Rios to take in a soccer ball with him because the script says they need to. And the soccer ball is, of course, where they hid the grenade. The addition of the grenade doesn't seem to alter the physics of the ball any, since Rios can still toss it around like a real soccer ball. We catch up with Jurati, who uses Saga's severed eye to open the lock and free Picard. He's taking a nap and doesn't immediately realize she's on his side until she announces it's a jailbreak. Jurati also admits she might have a gift for playing secret agent. They head back to the La Sirena. Nearby, Dr. Soong literally just completes the neural interface for his synth body, Golem, when the memory trace he was running on Saga's brain completes. He can see the last few seconds of what she saw before she died. Narek appears to hold on to her, but it's quite clear that Sutra delivers the fatal blow. This realization appears to hit Soong very hard, and indeed it does, but the scene switches so fast, you get no appreciation for the magnitude of the realization Soong just had, and how it changes everything. In this instant, Soong does a 180 from a man who was a maniac mad scientist, ready to put his mind into a synth body, and literally kill trillions upon trillions of people across the entire galaxy, to a man who realizes synths aren't perfect, organic life shouldn't be wiped out, and he doesn't even want the synth body anymore. Before Soong can fully process what he just saw, we cut to Narek, who is with Raffi, Rios, and Elnor, and they're trying to get closer to the transmitter. So the guards didn't bother to escort Narek back to his cell, they just allow them to walk around the city, and the group can't figure out how to get closer to the base of the transmitter, for some reason, but lucky for them, Dr. Soong shows up, and he's now on their side. Another quick cut, and we're back to La Sirena, where Picard and Jurati arrive to find it's empty. The Romulans are less than 7 minutes away, and there's no sign of Starfleet. Picard and Jurati argue a bit over what to do. Picard gives a little speech about how the synths are like children, and they never learned how to live, and he'll teach them by example. He then shows off he was watching Rios, and he does know how to fly the ship, even though recently he said he couldn't. It's good to see Picard flying the ship, even if it didn't seem very believable. Jurati tells Picard to
make it so.
Back to the beacon/transmitter where Soji, Sutra, and a number of synths are gathered underneath. We see Dr. Soong's plan to get Raffi and Elnor to the base of the beacon was to simply walk up the stairs. Did they really need him for that? Soong leaves the group to confront Sutra directly and tells her she reasoned correctly that killing Saga was necessary for the other synths to have the emotional reaction to follow her. Sutra says she's happy he sees her reasons. Soong then says that reason isn't everything, and uses a tool that flashes a light on Sutra and instantly turns her off. One wonders why didn't he turn off all the synths, at least until they deactivate the beacon, but for whatever reason he only turns off Sutra. With this, Raffi whistles and Rios and Narek jump over the fence, and Elnor and Raffi start fighting synths. Most of the synths just stand around like idiots, not noticing anything is going on, like they can't hear what's happening right behind them. Rios gets ready to throw the grenade, but hesitates because Soji is right where he needs to throw it. A couple of synths finally decide to hold Narek down, who calls to Soji and begs her to stop. It gets her away from the blast zone, so Rios activates his magic soccer ball that begins levitating and opens like a flower, revealing the grenade that is also now levitating and spinning by itself, and then throws itself at the target. No human interaction required. Of course, it heads directly into Soji's open hand, which catches it. She examines it for an uncomfortably long period of time before realizing it's a bomb and tossing it away. It explodes far enough away, nothing and no one is hurt, but Soji works even quicker now to finish the beacon. If only they had fit a second grenade into the soccer ball. Back to the Borg cube, we see Narissa with a fully functional weapons console. How did she get this repaired? We'll never know. But she detected La Sirena's launch, and she's getting ready to blow it out of the sky, when Seven puts a phaser to her head and tells Narissa to drop her weapon. Despite Seven having the phaser on Narissa manages to get the phaser out of Seven's hand, and they begin some good old-fashioned hand-to-hand combat. Up in space, the Romulan fleet arrives. It's a pretty cool scene all in all. On the Romulan flagship, an off-screen voice tells now General O that the population is concentrated in one settlement, to which General O orders the illogical sterilization of the entire planet. A single photon torpedo should be able to take out the entire settlement, but O, with a massive 218-ship fleet, is going to play this game, and we all know how it ends, in utter disappointment. Down on the planet, alarms seem to be going off. Everyone is looking up, and they can see the Romulan fleet in the sky, which is nonsense. The fleet is too far away, and the individual ships too small to be seen. Soji launches the Orchids toward the fleet. The Romulans begin attacking the Orchids, even though there were only 20-something Orchids and 218 warbirds, and who knows how many smaller Romulan fighters that were seemingly launched off-screen, when the entire fleet engages the Space Flowers. Try to enjoy it, because the Romulans versus the Space Flowers is the only space battle we're going to see in this episode. Seven and Narissa are still fighting and trading insults. In the end, Seven kicks Narissa over a ledge to her presumed death, the 88th for the season by my count, plus all those space Borgs, and yells, "This is for you," as Narissa falls. Seven disarms the weapons panel before we cut back to the space battle. Not surprisingly, the Flowers are getting their asses kicked. Jurati tells Picard if he can get them out of this, she'll name it after him, to which she remembers the Picard maneuver is a thing. Seems weird she'd know about it. She did mistakenly say Picard did it on the Enterprise, and Picard quickly corrects her to say it was the Stargazer. This fan service scene loses some of its appeal when you listen to Patrick Stewart's interview on the Ready Room, where he admits he had no idea the Picard maneuver was a thing in Star Trek. The only thing he ever heard called that was him fixing his uniform when he stood up or sat down. Picard goes on to explain to Jurati how the Picard maneuver worked and how it would be of no use in the current situation. Jurati chooses this moment to pick up the magic tool which was sitting in front of her the entire time. She has never seen this tool, has no idea what it is nor how it works, but just happens to pick it up now, as she imagines what they'd need to create a bunch of fake ships to stall the Romulans. She instantly seems to understand that she is holding a magic tool, and in one of the most cringy scenes ever, creates multiple copies of her own face to show Picard. How does she know this was going to work? No idea, and no explanation. On the planet, as Soji is working on the beacon, she sees Picard's ship is in orbit, and opens a channel to it. Picard tells her he wants her to reconsider her present course of action, and power down the beacon, which is a very Picard thing to say when the fate of the entire galaxy is at hand. Soji says, of course, she won't change her mind, even though we all knew she will eventually. Picard says he has something to give her people, his life, and he hopes it will change their mind before ending transmission. It's also kind of Dr. Jurati's life too, though, when you think about it. As the Romulans clear the last of the flowers, General O has changed her order from sterilizing the entire planet to having all 200+ ships aim at the settlement. Once again, though, a single torpedo could take out the entirety of the synth town. Before giving the order to fire, Picard maneuvers the tiny La Sirena in front of the entire Romulan fleet. Rather than ignore the pesky little ship in firing, General O has the ship scanned. We finally see the only other person on the bridge with General O, a random Romulan dude. O's entire ship seemed manned by just her and this one guy. You may say it's probably just very automated, which would be fine, if they didn't go out of their way to tell us earlier this season that Romulan computers are just calculators because they are so afraid of AI they don't do any type of automation. Anyway, after deciding to finally ignore the La Sirena, General O again changes her order from all ships targeting the settlement to, and I quote, Ready Planetary Sterilization Pattern Number 5. What? At this point, I'm starting to root for the super AI to destroy the galaxy. We organics don't seem to understand what is at stake. Picard tells Jurati to do her thing, so she holds on to the magic tool real tight and uses her imagination for hundreds of La Sirena-style ships to seemingly warp in, complete with warp signatures. So of course General O has her entire fleet engage the Phantom ships. She doesn't even send one ship to take out the settlement. The fleet doesn't seem to notice their weapons are going right through the Phantom ships. And in fact, they should be hitting the planet since there's nothing in their way to stop them, but of course they don't. The actual La Sirena takes a glancing blow and starts spinning out of control. All the Phantom ships disappear at that instant, and on the planet, Soji is monitoring the situation and screams out, "No!" when she sees the La Sirena is hit, as if she isn't about to kill all organic life. Picard struggles to get control of the ship, which he finally does. And once Picard is safe, Soji activates the beacon. She was just afraid Picard was going to be killed by the Romulans, and a second later she activates the beacon so the AI can kill everyone? Was she just angry the AI wouldn't get a chance to kill Picard? The beacon starts creating a big hole in space. Picard, Jurati, and the Romulans look on. General O, rather than just yelling, "Fire on the beacon," instead gives the much longer and more dramatic order, "Resume sterilization targeting pattern." And worse, she tells the fleet to wait for her command to fire. Wait! Why wait? The AI is about to destroy you all. How about fire at will? Of course, before she gives the command, the Federation fleet shows up. It's headed by acting Captain Riker, who hails General O and tells them the planet is under Starfleet protection. He also says that he is on the Zheng He. This is the most powerful ship ever created by Starfleet, and he has an entire fleet of them, and he does. Looking closely, they all appear to be the exact same class of ship, never before seen in Alpha canon, but widely rumored to be the Vesta class from the Star Trek Destiny novels. This is where the entire episode just completely falls apart for me. Riker and O are arguing over treaty terms and who has first claim to the planet. Meanwhile, the beacon is running and the destroyer of the galaxy is literally crawling its way out of the hole. A metal-looking worm or tentacles very reminiscent of what Captain Pike and Ash Tyler encountered when their shuttlecraft briefly time-traveled to the distant future in Star Trek Discovery. General O does not stand down and orders her fleet to target the Federation ships. Yet still no one begins to actually shooting, and neither side destroys the beacon. They just wait for events to play out on the La Sirena. This is total bullshit. The Romulans should have at least destroyed the beacon regardless of any treaty. This is the end of all life on the line. Hell, Riker should have destroyed the beacon if he knew what it was. Picard failed. The beacon is on. The monster is about to enter our universe. We are saved only because this super futuristic AI is inconceivably slow moving. By all rights, all organic life should have been destroyed. As the massive Romulan and Federation fleets wait with weapons armed, and the tentacle monster slowly crawls towards this dimension, Picard has some sort of medical situation on the La Sirena. Jurati scans him and knows it's his brain abnormality. His time to live is short, but he begs Jurati to give him some drug that will give him a few minutes of sanity before killing him, which she does. Picard says he needs to speak to Soji. Picard should have been hailing Riker and telling him to destroy the beacon. The risk here is too great. Even though we know as the audience this will work out, as a tactical decision it is 100% wrong. Picard, Riker, and O all took their stupid pills for this scene. So Picard gives what he gives best to Soji, a speech. He tells her he knows she'll make the right choice to turn off the beacon, and she takes her sweet time. Turning it off apparently just means smashing the controls with her fist. The beacon stops and the AI monster decides to back out rather than continuing to enter our realm for reasons. Riker hails Picard and tells Picard he'll leave the situation to Admiral Picard's capable hands. But Jurati knows Picard has just minutes to live. Does she tell Riker not to leave? Picard needs immediate medical attention. Does Picard tell Riker not to leave because he's about to die? No. Riker lets the traitor General O leave with her Romulan fleet, and then the entire Federation fleet warps away just a few minutes after getting there. I've never seen such a large fleet make such a short appearance. Where are they rushing off to? Why are they abandoning this planet? How is one person, even if it's Picard who wasn't dying, supposed to handle this situation without Starfleet support? Not to mention there is a Borg cube down on that planet that God knows how many bad actors would love to get their hands on. Starfleet couldn't spare a single starship? Nope. All of them are gone as quickly as they got there. Just seconds after Riker's fleet leaves, Picard has another episode and ends up lying on the floor of the La Sirena very near death. He is having flashbacks to earlier dreams he had about Data in the first episode. Soji sees this is happening because the channel is still open, and beams Picard and Jurati down. While it's clear we are seeing the death of Picard, it was 100% obvious to me that they had a completely ready golem body still sitting on the planet that Soong doesn't want anymore, and Picard would have it by the end of this episode. The death scene would be touching if I thought it was real, as Picard says his goodbyes, congratulates Soji on making the right choice, tells Elnor he is proud of him, and tells Raffi she was right, which we learned earlier were her 3 favorite words to hear. Those would be the last his organic body would ever speak. We are then treated to several wasted minutes of people continuing to grieve when we all know he'll be back, and Jurati and Soong are mysteriously missing. Seven and Rios talk about trying to figure out who's the bigger letdown. Seven wins. Elnor comes to comfort Raffi only to end up crying in her lap. These would be powerful scenes if they weren't all rendered irrelevant the moment Picard comes back from the dead. We see Picard open his eyes while sitting in a chair in a classically decorated living room, to which Picard says to himself, "Another damn dream." That's when we hear a familiar voice, and it's Data. Data in the same uniform he wore in First Contact through Nemesis, the uniform he was wearing when he died. Data tells Picard it's not a dream, but a massively complex quantum simulation, because we knew quantum would be in there somewhere. Picard and Data reminisce. Picard asks Data if he, Picard, is dead, to which Data confirms he is. Picard talks about remembering his death, but Data informs us he doesn't remember his, because his essence came from a copy of his memory that was saved to before he undertook the final mission that traded his life for Picard. For many years, Data's consciousness has been kept running inside this simulation. Picard finally gets the closure he needed the last 20 years from Data, who says he does not regret dying for Picard. Picard is surprised when Data tells Picard that Picard must leave. Data explains that while he is a simulation, Picard is not, and that Soji, Jurati, and Soong have been transferring his mind into a synth body. However, before Picard leaves, Data asks him one favor: to shut down the simulation. Data states that the fact humans must die is what makes life worth living, and shutting the simulation isn't killing Data, it's letting him live for a brief instant. Picard, of course, agrees, then walks into the light. Picard wakes up in a body that looks identical to the one he had. Soji, Jurati, and Soong are standing over Picard, who is naked, but thankfully most of this is blocked by the chamber he is in. Picard asks one question: "Am I real?" To which Soji replies, "Of course you are," the same answer Picard gave Soji when she asked if she was real. In the next scene, Picard is clothed and having tea with Jurati, Soji, and Soong. Picard wants to know about his new body. Jurati basically says it has no superpowers, and they just made the body exactly like his old one, except no brain abnormality. They also confirm he's not immortal and will only live as long as he would have lived had the thing that killed him never existed. Very convenient. Soong confirms everything works, which I think was his way of confirming Picard was fully functional. Picard ends by telling them he has a promise to keep, and we go back to the simulation where Data is listening to Blue Skies on a vinyl record player, which is a bit out of character for Data. However, far more out of character is the eulogy of sorts Picard gives before shutting the system down.
It says a great deal about the mind of Commander Data, that looking at the human race with all its violence and corruption and willful ignorance, he could still see kindness, the immense curiosity, and greatness of spirit.
Violence, corruption, willful ignorance. Really, Picard? Really? Isn't this almost what Q accused humans of at Encounter at Farpoint? This doesn't sound like the man who defended what humanity had grown into by the 24th century. And I know this wasn't about Data or the future at all. We all know this was meant to be about us. Us in the year 2020. Especially in the USA and Great Britain. Not because we failed to meet Picard's standards, but because we failed to meet Patrick Stewart's. He told us himself in the Variety interview before episode 1 even aired. So Picard begins removing what literally appear to be 3 USB or HDMI sticks, and with the removal of each one, Data gets noticeably more aged in the simulation until it finally turns off. Interesting, in the very last shot, an image of Picard in his TNG uniform is there with Data, as if to see him off to the great beyond. So we get a second death for Data, which I truly wasn't expecting, because Data was already dead to me in Nemesis. The final scene is on the La Sirena. Rios and Jurati kiss. The camera pans back to show the current crew. A little surprised to see Seven. Even more surprising is Seven seems to be in what I'd describe as a romantic embrace of the hands with Raffi. The only thing that shocks me about this is that Raffi and Seven had almost 0 screen time together. What kind of relationship could they have at this point? Picard says it's time, and the crew gathers on the bridge. Picard, Elnor, Soji, Raffi, Seven, Jurati, and Rios. Picard asks Soji why she is leaving with them after traveling so far to find her home. Soji says she's more cut out to be a wanderer, while also telling us the synth ban has been lifted, so she's free to travel, to which Picard adds, "Me too," since of course he's a synth now too. I must wonder how much time passed. I guess quite a bit for Seven and Raffi to hook up, and the Federation to reverse a galactic treaty. Unfortunately, all we can do is guess, because as Michael Chabon stated in previous interviews, he saw no value in giving logs or stardates. Admiral Picard, as he is again being addressed, gives the order to engage, and the La Sirena warps away, and we get to the end credits. End of episode, season over. The first thing I wondered as everyone left is, what happened to Narek? He seemed to redeem himself in this episode, at least as much as Jurati, who seemed to be facing no charges for killing Bruce Maddox. Part of me thinks Narek probably just wanted to stay behind on the planet and enjoy the company of the many synth women there. Next, I thought about the giant Borg cube sitting on the planet, and the many XBs that were there. Did Seven leave them behind? Were they maybe rescued in the unknown time before the La Sirena left? Is everyone going to forgive and forget the inhabitants of this planet could unleash the apocalypse at any time? Even if you trust the synths and Soong now, how can you leave the planet alone with the risk of some evil force doesn't take it over and force them to rebuild the beacon against their will? That is, assuming that the beacon was even disassembled, because last time we saw it, it was still there. I am content with the ending, in that there was no big cliffhanger for Season 2. In fact, they can do just about anything in Season 2. I have no idea where Season 2 is headed, and I'm fine with that. While there was no cliffhanger, I would say there are still loose ends that I kind of know will never be addressed again. My biggest is, who was Captain Crandall from the Nepenthe episode? This mysterious figure is teased as being older than Picard and having been all over the galaxy, and a friend of Kestra, who is Riker and Troy's daughter. He knew exactly where the synth planet was when Picard, Riker, and Troy had no idea. They teased him way too much to never reveal any more about him. A small thing I wanted to see, call it cheesy, but these are the little things that count. But back when Picard first picks up Elnor, we learned Elnor had never seen a cat and very much wants to. Last episode, we learned that there's a cat named Spot 2 in the labs where Jurati and Soong were working, and Picard was being held. Yet at no point did we see Elnor meet Spot 2, not even when he was crying. Speaking of Elnor crying, and everyone in general mourning the loss of Picard, did Jurati, Soji, and Soong ever tell these people that they were going to bring Picard back? If so, why are they crying? And if not, what the heck is wrong with Jurati and Soji for not saying anything? Soong, I would believe, not saying anything. He's a Soong, after all. And what happened to Picard's organic body? If the synth ban was lifted and the data simulation was allowed to die, I assume they can't create any more synths using the fractal moronic cloning Soong and Maddox had developed. Wouldn't Jurati feel compelled to stay and continue Maddox's work to create a brand new Soong-type android? I feel this show got so close to greatness, but like General O, never actually executed the order to be great. The build-up to the battle with the AI menace, with two massive fleets there to fight a common enemy, was so disappointing. The lack of variety of ships was another disappointment. I can't say Picard was a terrible series. I will say it's a crime they never reached the potential they could have had. Every chance for greatness seemed ruined by lack of budget, terrible editing, forgetful writing, or a combination of all three. I'm going to lower my score for this episode just a bit, to 4.5 out of 10, to reflect my disappointment in the season finale. I admit it could have been a lot worse, but it should have been a lot better. I am planning more Star Trek Picard videos. At the very least, the updated body count for episodes 5 to 10 will be released soon. If you've enjoyed this, please be sure you comment, like, and subscribe. Please also consider subscribing to my secondary channel, Bertoprey5X. The X is for extra. Links to this channel and much more can be found on my website, bertoprey5.com. Please check it out to learn more. Finally, I want to thank everyone out there for watching, and I truly hope you all stay healthy during these unprecedented times. Qapla all, take care, and wash your hands.